Welcome to the Roxbury Film Festival 2021. I want to thank you so much for joining us for the screening of Kuumba, From Black to Gold and Real Souls. And first, I'd like to thank the Roxbury Film Festival. I'd like to thank the filmmakers for sharing their work and inspirational stories to us. We are going to start by having a Q&A. Introduce yourselves and your films for the audience. Remember, this is a webinar format. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A. And if you have a comment, please use the chat functions. So let's get so introduce yourselves. And I'll start with Sara because she's on my bottom left, and then we'll go around to me.
Well, hello, everyone. Well, good evening. My name is Sara Horatius. I am originally from Boston, Massachusetts, still in Boston. Currently, I just graduated from Boston University this past May with a master's in screenwriting. And yeah, my film that was screened today was the Kuumba Singers From Black to Gold. So that's me.
Okay, Kenny Dean.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kenny Dean. I am the producer for Real Soul, a gospel music story made in very heavy collaboration with my good friend and colleague, Daniel Andera. Daniel and I both live and work in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where we made a majority of this film amongst the people that we were fortunate enough to find that were able to weave this entire story together for us. It was very much a snowball effect of being infatuated with the concept of music and the concept of people absorbing gospel music, especially at very young ages. And we just started to sit down and do these interviews, and before we knew it, we had an entire story to tell. And the entire project was Danny's baby, but he brought me on board to help drive the ship with him, and I'm extremely honored and pleased to have played my part in Real Soul.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, I don't know if you like Danny, but
whatever, doesn't matter. I'm Daniel Andera. I directed Real Soul, gospel music story, and yeah, what Kenny said. No, it's a very local Milwaukee type of film, and we're just really happy that it's been received really well. We've had it in a few festivals, and we work in the business of motion pictures. We do commercials mostly and stuff like that. So that's kind of how this came about. We were talking at work one day, and I was going on and on about how much I love 60s soul music, and he's saying, oh, everybody used to sing in soul, singing gospel, and he had a cousin who sang at this church, and I had never experienced it before in the slightest bit. And one led to another, led to another, led to another. 3 months, I should say 3 years and one pandemic later, we got it done. So
it's great to see you all's collaboration. So can you tell me a little bit about your film and talk about how the story came about? And I can start with you, Danny.
Okay. The story came about, like I said, we were at work one day, and I'm obnoxious to talk to about music because I'm always right. I'll just tell you about it. And how I hate music that's not good, but I like music that is good. And I didn't know anything about gospel music. I was raised in uptight white Irish Catholic church, and that's not the kind of music we did in church, that's for sure. And so when I was first exposed to it, I just wanted more and more and more. And Kenny and I worked together, and we both were, on board as far as the same idea of the story. And it was funny, we'd interview somebody like, oh, here's a choir director at this church. And they'd say, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. And then that person was unbelievably great. And then we would just shoot their performances at first, but then we would interview the performers. And what hit me the hardest was that how much the music means to people. It's not just like, hey, baby, I love you, Justin Bieber garbage. It's meaningful, and that's really what struck me, because I take music very seriously. And one interview performance just led to another, and then we just ended up doing the interviews because after we talked to people, after we saw the performances, we just got to know them, and it was just a great experience.
Okay, Kenny. I know that Daniel pulled your arm, though. But what made you so excited about working with Danny and for this particular project?
Danny has a lot of influence on my career from the very beginning. Years ago, Danny and I were both working shoulder to shoulder in grip and electric, which anybody that knows a little bit about production, that's usually the dangerous, heavy lifting side of filmmaking. But we definitely deal with lighting. And even amongst making our day rates, we've always had our own inspirations to do more creative pieces of work, whether we're talking narrative or documentary. But the making of Real Soul was just the meeting of two minds that may not have initially had a ton of things in common from our backgrounds and from the ways that we were raised, but had enough in common to recognize, most importantly, the power and the magnitude that something like soul music can have. And Danny hit it right on the head. You know, being the type of person that he is that critiques music so hard, a lot of that was just free information for me to absorb. I mean, Danny started off giving me great playlists to play at dinner parties. He'd go down the history of some of the most iconic soul and blues performers that have ever existed. And he's like a historian. He knows where they performed at. He knows who influenced them and different tour dates that they've had. And in us having this great relationship, even just finding that camaraderie in a musical perspective, it also was an exchange of, well, when I would offer up my history of growing up in a Baptist church, and I've always witnessed young boys and girls getting up in front of a choir to sing as early as the age of 5. Little boys playing drums at the age of 7. Well-experienced teenagers that can play the keyboard or the organ like nobody's business. And none of them ever had to do anything like go to a music school to learn this. And when you think about the power that has, I mean, that's a very important word to imagine, the power, the way that people can feel by witnessing and hearing soul music and gospel music, but also the power that these young individuals are able to deliver. It just put us in a situation where Danny and I just had something on our hands and we had to do something with it.
Oh, okay, that's great. Tapping into the youth and the children was powerful. What about you, Sara?
Well,
What inspired you to do Kuumba?
Yeah, so I started my MFA program in the fall of 2019. And I think spring of 2020, I was able to take an elective and I was like, oh, I want to do a documentary. And I used to be part of the Kuumba Singers, even though I didn't go to Harvard, but the Kuumba Singers of Harvard College, the choir is open to the community. So Kuumba was founded in the 1970s, well, exactly in 1970, and in 2020 was going to be their 50th anniversary. And since I want to say maybe in 2018, 2017, they've been talking about the 50th anniversary and planning it. And when I got into BU, I just remember I was like, okay, I'm going to be the one to document this journey of the Kuumba Singers preparing for their 50th anniversary. And also because I was a student at BU, I had access to the cameras and the sound equipment because I did not have any of those items. So I was just like, oh, let me take advantage of this for free. So, and also in my class, we were forming groups. So I had 3 other people in my group who can work the cameras and edit and all that stuff. So I was just like, okay, let me take advantage of this. So, and at the time, Kuumba didn't have anyone who was going to document their 50th anniversary. So I was just like, you know, it was a challenge for myself, because I was just like, I've done short films before, like for my class or just on my own. I was just like, okay, this is going to be like sort of like a bigger project for me. And Kuumba has been such a great thing in my life. And I just wanted to document, you know, Kuumba from, you know, from their history until the 50th. So that's how that came about.
Okay. My next question is, and I'm going to start with Kenny. What challenges did you come across in making the film?
Oh, well, I think Danny can agree with me that one of our biggest challenges were, and I'm sure any documentary filmmaker may have even experienced similar challenges, you're always dealing with real people. And although a lot of the people that we sat down and spoke with, the young people, the old people, in betweens, all were extremely talented. But when you turn a camera on someone, that's a different type of intimacy. It's a different level of engagement that a lot of people weren't necessarily completely ready for. And although we always maintained a small crew, whenever Danny and I came into a place, we usually have a 2-camera setup, multiple lights. You put a mic on someone, ask them to sit down, and when we're doing interviews and asking fairly probing questions, you realize that initially people aren't very comfortable. So as it turns out, Danny and I got some of our best interviews when we were willing to make second visits with people, when we were willing to get past a certain layer of breaking the ice. And it was, you know, it was often funny. It was often, you know, a very lighthearted and spirited conversation that we would have with people in order to get them to relax. But some of the individuals that we interviewed, and this is, again, a really important concept about Real Soul to me, especially when we interviewed some of the older individuals. A lot of what makes gospel music so strong is people usually have a story to tell. They usually have a testimony. And those parts were tremendously a heavy contribution to the story that we were telling. If you're talking about people that were dealing with oppression, and we all know the format of this country, especially if you're talking about the rural South, if you're talking about individuals that grew up around Emmett Till. And unfortunately, there were moments in our interviews that had to be very serious. So what I found to be a difficult thing is I felt very often that we were taking people on a roller coaster ride. We'd ask some lighthearted, humorous questions in the beginning. But I can say today, honestly, all that was just to break the ice, because I knew that sooner or later, there'd be some deep, hard-hitting questions, some stories that these people would share that would speak volumes for our project, but would take these people through a fairly emotional and turbulent roller coaster. And in a couple of hours, sitting and interviewing with somebody, you watch this emotion happen in real time. You see them laugh, and then you see them cry, and then hopefully by the time they get to the end, we see them laugh again. But yeah, interviewing people that weren't used to being on camera, that can create a very emotional roller coaster.
And Danny, did you find any problems in addition to what Kenny talked about?
Yeah, again, because what I said before, like when you go into somebody's music, or you go into their church, or you go into their home or their place of work, in a lot of places, you know, it's an intimate. Kenny's word is intimate. And that's perfect. It was an intimate experience, and I mean, everyone is so very welcome. You know, about like, sure, you can do this whenever you want, but it was, once, to kind of underline what Kenny said, is that once people kind of, as any filmmaker said, once you have, realize you're trusted, and once that is, and then at that point, then people started telling their stories of what they've been through, what the music means to them. And I mean, you know, I'm sitting here, sitting behind the camera rolling, thinking to myself, well, that's going to be in the movie, and that's going to be in the movie. And like, I just knew some of the stuff they were saying, like, it was just, music means a lot more to people than some people and others. And if you've been through stuff that, you know, I have not been through, many people, you know, have been through. Kenny said that we interviewed one gentleman who grew up in Mississippi around the Emmett Till, and just other things that people have gone through and how much the music means to them. Then after that, yes, it was a challenge to get to that point. But from me being the editor, it was the whole time I thought, well, you know, I know that I'm going to show this to them first so they can approve, because it does. You don't want to be too intimate and think, oh, you took something from me. I don't want that. And everyone is so generous of their time and generous of their stories. And like, we didn't want to get in the way all the time. Like, we didn't shoot at any services, official, you know, Saturday or Sunday services. It was always a performance around a benefit for something, or at somebody's like birthday party. So it was all secular, if you will, performances. But when it came to the interviews, yeah, the intimacy is a hard thing to get to. But then, you know, once you got there, they were unbelievably generous and they were happy with it. Luckily, everyone who saw, you know, was in it was very happy with the final product, because that was really the only audience I really wanted to please. I just wanted to make sure that the people who were in the movie were happy with how they were presented, and everyone was, and it was really nice, you know, that way.
Sarah, what challenges did you have?
Oh man, the biggest challenge was the pandemic. That derailed like
Pandemic, I haven't heard of this. What?
Yeah, it's like this little thing that happened 2020. No, but you know, we started, so because it was in collaboration or in coordination with the course I was taking, I think the class started like January or something, and you know, you do like the regular coursework and everything, and I think we started actually filming, I want to say in March. We like got the cameras ready, and then we did our first shoot, and we went to the rehearsal, and everything was great. And then Harvard was the first school to shut down. They told their students, do not come back. And then I was just like, oh my goodness, like, what are we gonna do? So I just remember I was in class, and I had an iPhone 7 at the time, and I rushed over to Harvard, and then I shot the last shoots on my phone. So if you watch the film, towards the end, it's like grainy from
That's
like
great.
the beginning, which is
That's
like
great.
HD, and then it's just like, because I was just like, because that was for Kuumba, that was their last time on campus. And I was like, I was just like, I need this shot. Like, I need these last couple of shots to complete. Because at this point, like, before Harvard shut down, like, I had like almost everything, but then I was just like, because we knew that everything was going to shut down, we had to switch what the documentary was going to be about. Like, it was just not about what Kuumba is and about their faith, but it's also how the pandemic derailed them from, you know, having their 50th anniversary. So I rushed over with my cell phone, and I got the last couple of shots. And I just remember, like, the other thing we weren't able to get was the interviews from the president and the vice president of Kuumba. And I remember we had booked the studio at BU, and then Harvard shut down. And then the week after, BU emailed us and was like, yeah, we're shutting down too. And I think it was like, I was on spring break at the time, because I think Harvard had their spring break before us. And we went to campus, and we're like trying all our cards, and nothing's working. Because I remember calling me, I was like, you sure the studio is going to be open? It was like, yeah, you'll be fine. We went, nothing, my card didn't work. Every building was closed. So like, we literally went on, if you know where BU is, it's like on Com Ave. We literally walked on Com Ave and tried every door, because I think the VP and the president were like leaving. They were going back home. So this was our only chance. And we found a building. I don't know if they forgot to lock this building. We found a building, found some chairs, set it up. And we were walking with all this equipment, like our cameras and everything. And we just like walking. And we finally found a building, and we just set up everything, and we got our final shot. And I don't know how we did, but we got everything. But that was the biggest challenge, was just this pandemic was just like, so we just wasn't, I mean, no one was expecting it. But we were like, I think out of all the groups in our class, I think at the end, it was like maybe 6 to 8 groups in our class. We were like 1 out of 2 who stuck with our original idea for our documentary. And I was just so happy that we just took initiative to get all those final shots.
That's great.
That's funny because the
Next question
pandemic
is-
is the pandemic is the thing that got our movie made, because all of our work went dried up into nothingness. And my wife turned to me and she said, "Well, you've got no excuse not to edit your movie now." So
It is important for us to find ways to tell our stories and bring them to the world. These stories are personal and inspirational. What do you hope the audience takes away from your films? And I'll start with Sara.
Oh, wow. Well, the film is, so the theme for Kuumba for the 50 years is from Black to Gold, and we decided to name the documentary that title because the history of Kuumba, in the 1970s, there was, unrest in the United States and on Harvard's campus between Black and brown students and white students. And we wanted to show like this, when we talk about like from Black, like not only as just students of color, but just also this darkness in this history of just trying to prevent Black students from having their voices heard. And then showing that progression of, from this time of darkness to gold, where they incorporated, African American studies on Harvard's campus, where Kuumba was founded to provide a space for students of color, and just how students of color have progressed throughout this time on Harvard's campus, and just African Americans generally in the United States. And one thing I have gotten from the film, and what I want people to get, is that no matter what adversity comes your way, like to always, like there's always some, in the midst of the darkness, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Like the more you press forward, the more you persist, you will eventually get to that light. So, and that's how, in terms of a visual perspective of what this title means and what is shown in this documentary, is just keep pushing forward.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Danny, what do you want people to take away from you and Kenny's collaboration?
I think the main thing would just be how, like, kind of touched on it before, but how important the music is and what music can mean to some people. We went in saying that, it's a gospel music movie. It's not a religious movie necessarily. The focus is more about the music, and basically, and then what I learned after making the movie was that the focus of the movie is how unbelievably talented these people are, and humble, and nobody wants to get famous from this. And, they do, sometimes one of the choir directors does like 4 or 5 services a day, and he just helps out choir and stuff like that. And just how selfless and humble and talented these people are, and how and again, the reason that what drives them and how important it is to them, and how important music can be for them. That was what I personally, that's what I took away from it. Let's put it that way. That wasn't exactly the question, but I think I hope that's what people can also grab from it.
What about you, Kenny? Can you elaborate on anything that Danny said, or you feel like he covered it?
Oh, I'm sure he can, by the way.
Believe it or not, Danny loves it when I do this. You guys know that. You can also probably take a guess who did all the interviews, or at least most of the interviews in our family. America isn't ignorant to what has happened in our history, in our old history, and in our very recent history. During the pandemic, there was so much more than that going on. There was civil unrest. There was George Floyd. There was a horrible election. There was a horrible incident right after the election. And something that I want to make sure that people can grab on to is, we want folks to enjoy all of the talented folks that lent us a hand in making this film. But at its core, at its very root, gospel music is so much more than just entertaining. It's so much more than just therapeutic and helpful to the spirit. It's, in its roots, was a roadmap, at its core, it was a detailed blueprint of how to escape from slavery. And I don't try to spend a lot of time harping on being a Black man in America and feeling mistreated or feeling out of place or disenfranchised. It happens. It definitely happens. But the reality of America that it definitely can't ignore for much longer is those underrepresented, disenfranchised people had a level of wisdom for a very long time and were making their best attempt to provide better lives for the people that were coming behind them. That's what gospel music got its beginnings in. It's a roadmap to escape from slavery. Clearly America's biggest travesty to ever happen. I just think it speaks volumes to what we've experienced in our recent history. So I just want people to put America, both its past history, its recent history, under a brief little microscope. And obviously, while you're doing that, we hope you enjoy the music.
Oh, okay. So are you and Danny working on anything now? After this movie, are you going to work on something else?
Nothing's really in the hopper right now. No, just ideas.
Yeah.
Just ideas right now.
Tons of ideas. And there's still a lot going on with Real Soul. If you're talking about different things like distribution, we try to keep a lid on that because that's so much of the business side of things. But you know, Danny's one of my good friends and my mentor. He's a guy that took me under his wing when I was first getting into the business, made sure I had a viable enough career to provide for my family. And since then, we've been able to raise our kids together. We've had numerous parties together, hung out a lot. And it's just an amazing thing to have somebody like that in my life. And I appreciate Danny so much. I don't get a chance to tell him that too often because we're usually cracking jokes against each other. But I really love that guy.
Yikes.
I
Wow.
think that's a testimony in and of itself, working on the film and just seeing your relationship.
Yeah, Ebony and Ivory.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Did you say? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Sarah, what are you working on? Are you working on something else?
Actually, yeah, I'm trying to work on putting my degree to use. So I'm working on scripts. I do have an animated script. I am looking for BIPOC animators who can help me animate it. Well, my brother actually just graduated from mass art with 2D animation degree. So we're trying to animate my pilot. But yeah, I'm just looking to connect with like other filmmakers and yeah, just still trying just to create and see where I go from here. Because this is like, for me, like this documentary, even though it's short, was like a major goal for me that I accomplished. So I'm just like, what else can I do? So we'll see. The sky's the limit.
Yeah, you keep seeing me. Do you see me touching my phone? I'm trying to look for questions. Other questions. I thought Lisa might be fielding some of the questions to the audience, but I'm on my small phone. So I am trying to see if I can find any other questions that the participants might have. But I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm in the chat.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna jump in. And I mean, I think it's so, like Cynthia, like all of you talked about the power of music, and culturally, I was just thinking about conversations that we've had all week about like lifting up these voices and how you captured that and the importance of that. So I just and you've probably sort of touched on it a little bit, but for me, I mean, you all capturing these voices and capturing these people's spirits is really important for all of us to understand what this music and music in general just does for people. And we so need that right now.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, from our end, it was one of those things where, again, as Sara mentioned, this pandemic that she speaks of, which I haven't really seen much of, but you know, people hadn't gotten together, gathered in churches. They haven't done any of that stuff. And so when I would start showing like rough cuts of stuff like that, it was like, you know, exactly what Lisa said is true. It's like, it was, they missed, if nothing else, the gathering together and stuff like that. And that just didn't happen, you know, and what you said is true. Like the music, again, if you'd see a polka band that didn't get together for a few months, they probably wouldn't care that much. But, you know, gospel in the church and how much that music means to their whole world, they were very happy to see what we recorded and see that we're actually, you know, doing this, giving this music justice. And that was, again, what I said, that was the only people I really cared about who watched the movie. And it was just nice to see that because it does mean more. It means more to them.
Yeah, I think about Jubilee singers and, you know, and Kenny's talking about road to you know, out of to freedom and a document of slavery and history. And, you know, it's like, now's the time to be telling those stories. People are listening and people are looking for them. So it's like it's like incredible. Both of these films that have done that.
Thank you.
I have a
So keep it
question.
up.
Lisa, do we have
Keep
time
it
for a
up.
question?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. The question I have is, since COVID has happened, me and Allison were talking this morning, and how do you all see this film being produced, even though we're opened up, but we're doing a lot of things through Zoom? How do you see that working in the future? Am I making myself clear? Like, a lot of people aren't going to want to go to the movies or go out, and then they have the option of doing like Zoom. How do you think we're going to be able to, how you going to think you're going to do your films with that kind of, how you going to move forward with them?
And we, like Kenny alluded to, we're talking to distributors and how every person in the world would see a movie nowadays is they would, you know, see it through iTunes or Amazon or Netflix and stuff like that. So that's, when we first made it, I wasn't even thinking of that at all. But then other people who've gone through this before have said, you really need to kind of push down that road. And like, that really needs to be how you do this movie or the next movie or Sarah's next movie or whatever it is. Like, you really need to push that, because I know people are going to theaters, and we were talking about, Kenny and I not too long ago, we're talking about, you know, again, with the pandemic that Sara speaks of, we never had a friends and family screening and like, let's show this movie and have everybody who's involved in the movie all sit in the same room, you know, which would have been spectacular. And we're talking about planning something like that now in summer, but that's one of those things that, you know, if you, a traditional festival, like I'm sure that, you know, Roxbury previous years, you get together and there's the premiere screening and the filmmaker goes up on stage and talks at length about his movie, and that's the traditional way of doing it. But now we went through this past year with a couple other festivals too, where it's been this virtual interaction, which is not quite the same, but it's just, yeah, it's an interesting point to bring up, is how that changes how people see movies. And I think that going forward, I don't know. I think that people will probably be more apt to go online. I don't know.
Lisa,
I would say, oh, sorry. I would
Go
say
ahead.
that, yeah, I'm one of those people who will be more likely to attend stuff online. Like, I think like with this pandemic that I speak of, that I just, and because I enjoy things being online, because I feel as if it's more accessible to people all over, you know, who wouldn't have the chance to come to Boston to attend the Roxbury Film Festival or in other places. So I do appreciate that things are online. Granted, I do think that we do need to get back to the in-person screenings or in-person events, but I do hope that we can find this balance where we can have it in person, also streaming. So I'm hoping that for the future, because I just think that a lot of these festivals or events are are so important and beneficial. And I feel as if anyone who can, wherever you are, should have access to watch them or attend. So that's just my personal opinion.
Well, thank you for answering that was my real curiosity. Like, because even at like, people don't want to go back to work, people don't want to go back to church because everybody's getting so used to doing everything online. So it's just, we're not going back. I just know that, but.
We
I
need
think-
to though.
I think most people would rather see, I mean, I don't know. Most people I think would rather see a movie in a movie house where there's no distractions and there's no phone ringing and, you know, it's much more of a exclusive experience. I think that's the best way to see a movie.
Hear, hear. Wholeheartedly agree with that.
I really wish we would come out in person for this, but
I know.
we live in Wisconsin and all we have right now is the Bucks, so.
Yeah, sorry for all you folks out there in New York, especially Brooklyn, but go Bucks.
We're not talking sports, are we? Because that's going to get very upsetting. It'll get very upsetting very fast.
We've done a couple of, you know, different festivals here and have been virtual and they've been great. They've been just great. And actually one of the festivals a local one here in Wisconsin at Beloit, the director said that, you know, more people saw more movies than when they did the in-person, which is, you know, I guess an advantage, you know, and we actually had a couple of distributors contact us because they saw us at this festival and it was shocking to me. I mean, I thought that people went to movies and that's how you did it. So I wasn't expecting that. So I mean, I really appreciate the festival directors that put all the work in it. And I mean, it's got to be just a logistical nightmare to coordinate all these Zoom calls and all that other stuff. So I really do appreciate people like Lisa and the directors as far as, you know, getting people to see the movies. And it's hard.
Yeah, I mean it is, but for us, for RoxFilm, it's such a filmmakers festival. That's what we pride ourselves on. We've been priding ourselves on that for 23 years. And so for you to say that that's great, it's true. I mean, I think Allison was saying that last year, we just did this 8 months ago because we had to push our festival last year to the fall, but we had more people watching our films than I think ever before because of this format. So in one way it's difficult because we all want to be in person, but in another way, it gets eyes on your film that you wouldn't necessarily have had that opportunity. So it's a double-edged sword. We do want to be in person. We need that sense of camaraderie and networking, but we are definitely planning on getting back there next year. Hurry up and finish your next film.
That's very true. Thank you. Thank you very much, Miss Lisa, Miss Cynthia. I want to thank the both of you for hosting this platform and being able to give us a place to, you know, answer some questions and engage with people about this content. But I definitely want to give Sister Sara some flowers. I think it's really, really important to acknowledge that a lot of people have these half high hopes and these would-be dreams that they kind of do. And let me tell you, as a grown man that's already been through college, I know the difficulty of completing a project when you set out to do it, but you've been able to complete a project while you were still in school. And I think that is to be commended tremendously. So, Sara, I want to give you some flowers and say, keep doing your thing. That is extremely impressive. A college student being able to get out here and grind, especially at the top of the pandemic, something that was going to slow you down more than anything else in the world. But you persevered and fought through and you got your baby done. I just want to commend you on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to get through it, but God's grace I did. So thank you.
So I think we can end the session now. It looks like we're gonna, do you all have any questions for us? No. And if we have, as you are aware, we have more films that you can watch if you go to the mfa.org and check out some of the other Roxbury Film Festival.
And I think Renee put in the chat too about we have filmmaker hangouts every night between now and the 26th, which is our closing night. They're fun, and so for you there, especially as a new filmmaker, it's a great opportunity to meet other filmmakers. People come in and out. You know, we have no idea what's going to happen with it, but we would love you to come on and meet your fellow RoxFilm 2021 filmmakers. That would be great. And you're local, Sarah, so we should keep in touch as you're moving through your filmmaking journey. We're certainly here to help support that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for your work. Thank you, Cynthia, for a great moderated Q&A. We're just really excited to have your films here in our fest and to meet you and to have you have this great, rich discussion. So important for all of us to be continuing to have these conversations and continuing to make films that uplift us and uplift Black communities, and constantly trying to counter the narrative that's out there. So thank you for your work. And have a good night.
Thank you
Great
very
day.
much. Thanks for
Thank
having us.
you,
Appreciate it.
Have a good night. Peace.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye, everyone.
Bye.